It's time for the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down districts 1 and 2 week in, week out in the state of Idaho. Brandon Baney, as always, but the guy you all really came here to see is my co-host, Ryan Scaggs. What's up, Scaggs?
I'm good. What's up? Had to get my swig in.
Yeah, continuing the tradition of taking a swig right when we come to you on camera. That's good. That's good stuff. Right. I jokingly say Scaggs is the guy that everybody comes to see because he's the one that always gets the comments. We didn't talk. Yeah, we didn't talk any wrestling last week. Come on, Scaggs. How come we didn't talk any wrestling? I get emails from people, and this works the same way, Ryan. You got people that reach out to you and they always say, "Hey, make sure you pass this on to Brandon." And I get stuff too. Hey, make sure you pass this on to Ryan. So, it's a good pairing.
It's funny is that I was like doing I have a business outside of doing this, obviously, right. And I was on a phone call yesterday with an individual, and he's like, "Are you the same Ryan that does the North Idaho Prepcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Where are you at?" And like, "Are you like live in North Idaho?" He's like, "No, I'm down in Gooding. I'm a football coach." And I'm like, "Sweet, all right, like cool." Like we started talking football. It was kind of random, but shout out to the Gooding Senators. But yeah, it was kind of a cool thing that like sports has opened the door for people to talk and even razz each other. I think there's a couple people that have followed like me on Twitter that know that I went to Boise State, and there's a few Vandal fans that let me know about that too. Spoiler alert, though, I went to U of I as well. So, I mean, it's kind of funny that we can tease and have fun and enjoy, talk. And ultimately, it's about the kids. And I think when we kind of put the levity in the situation where you can grill each other and have fun with it, it definitely puts everything into perspective and having a better time talking about sports, because you can really talk about anything and anybody and nobody gets offended, which I enjoy.
Right. I froze up there for a second again because I've got so many tabs open, but for good reason. If you are watching the video version of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, first of all, please hit that subscribe button. That helps us out. It helps more eyeballs see our channel and see our content. If you're listening audio only as well, IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts, you can subscribe via your favorite podcast app as well. But coming up here, I'm going to be sharing my screen for those that are watching the video because it's time. My alter ego has returned. Brackets Baney. It is time to bust out the brackets and talk about girls postseason hoops, district tournaments slated to get underway in North Idaho as soon as tonight, I think, for the White Pine League. So they're kind of the opening course, and then we'll have more at the end of the week, and then, of course, into next week as well. But we figured this is the time. We want to bust out the brackets and break it all down. So which way you want to go? You want to go 5A to 1A D2, or you want to go 1A D2 up to 5A?
Let's do 5A first, because I think we could start big school, because there's some kind of, I think we've already seen a lot at the bigger schools. I think the unknowns is kind of what's going to happen as we move down the bracket or down this classification. So
right.
Let's take a look at 5A first.
Okay. And again, if you're watching the video version of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, I'm going to share my screen. You'll see the brackets up on the screen. If you're watching the video, maybe make your player full size so it's a little easier to read the bracket. If you're listening audio only, you can follow along as well. We have all of the district brackets right smack dab at the top of the homepage at IdahoSports.com. All right, so here we go. This is the District 1 and 2 girls bracket for 5A. And it kind of settled in the way we thought it might, with Coeur d'Alene being the 1 seed, Lake City the 2 seed, Post Falls ends up the 3, Lewiston the 4th. So you've got Lewiston at Coeur d'Alene Friday 6:30, Post Falls with a much shorter trip to Lake City, also Friday at 6:30. Post Falls on a 4-game losing streak entering districts. Ryan, all 4 of those losses have come to Coeur d'Alene and Lake City.
Yeah, and the Bengals are coming off a big win over Clarkston in the Golden Throne game last week, which is a ranked team in the state of Washington, a 2A, which is a big win, I know, for that program. And Coach Stefanchik and her program are definitely riding the wave from that win. down at LCSE on Friday night. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking chalk. I think Lake City could surprise in the championship game. That wouldn't shock me one bit. But I definitely see this being a 2-bid conference into the state tournament, regardless of who makes it. But I don't know if Post Falls can right the ship, and I know that I'm going to probably take some heat from the Trojans in this one, but they've got to figure out their offensive woes. They've been kind of lackluster in the games they've played Coeur d'Alene and Lake City, and defensively just kind of coming discombobulated, a lot of turnovers. They've got to be able to fix that stuff if they're going to have a chance to find their way to the state tournament.
Yeah, and again, this is the sad part of this deal is that, if it is Post Falls that's on the short end of the stick here, they're deserving to be at state. I mean, when you look at District 3, a district that gets to send 4 teams automatically to state, among the top 4 teams that got the top 4 seeds in that district are Rocky Mountain, a team that Post Falls has already beaten this year, Eagle, a team that Post Falls has beaten this year, and also with a chance to get an at-large bid is Mountain View, another team that Post Falls has beaten this year. In fact, Post Falls went undefeated against District 3 this year. They beat Rocky, Eagle, Meridian, Mountain View, and Bora. They went 5-0 against that district and may not be able to get to state. That's just a bummer, man.
It's a shame, and it's a conversation to be had. I mean, people are going to ask for expansions. I'm not on the 16-team bus, but I definitely think the play-in round needs to be expanded to where there's some true at-larges. Get rid of some of these automatic, I get the AQs for the district champions. I get that part. But I think that it needs to be opened up a little bit for that AQ because we have that extra weekend. Why not make it a Friday, Saturday affair and get those teams that are most deserving into the tournament? But that's a conversation for another time. But I mean, looking at the controllables in front of you, Coeur d'Alene and Lake City. I mean, they are very impressive. I think they're 1A and 1B. Those 2 teams are very, very good, very, very skilled, great on-court leadership. I think that's one thing Lake City doesn't get a lot of credit for is Sophia Zufalt does a great job as a leader on the floor for the Lady T-Wolves. And rightfully, you look at Coeur d'Alene and who they've got with Colville and Simmons. And I mean, that whole lineup is just loaded. Madison Mitchell, they just don't turn the ball over. They get points on transition buckets too. They play really gritty defense. Those are 2 teams. If I'm anybody in the state of Idaho, I don't want to face either one of those teams.
Do you believe in deja vu, Ryan?
Sometimes I have. I'll be sitting somewhere like I've been here before, but yeah, go ahead. I'm following you.
I ask because the league standings this year with this combined Inland Empire League, the 5As and the 4As, they all count in the league standings. So there's 9 conference games total this year. Coeur d'Alene 9-0 in league. Lake City 7-2. Post Falls 5-4. Last year, Coeur d'Alene 9-0. Lake City 7-2. Post Falls 5-4. And Post Falls and Lake City were the teams that got the bids to state. Now, for the sake of Coach Simmons and those Coeur d'Alene Vikings, I hope this isn't deja vu. I'm just saying it's real eerie, man. I got a bad feeling.
I don't know. I think it was an anomaly. I'm going to throw it out, and I'm just going to ride my what I've seen, and I've watched all of these teams play. And based off of what I see, it would take a massive meltdown for Coeur d'Alene to find its way on the outside this year. I really look at that team and the depth that they have. I mean, you could have said the same last year when they had Skylar Burke and everybody else too, but there's just something about this team this year. You look at them and they're on a mission, and they're not looking ahead either. I mean, they take care of everybody on their schedule, and it's, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. And, we knew this league was going to be tough at the beginning of the season. Here we are at the end of the year, and it's exactly proving true. What we thought at the beginning is what we're seeing now. And, Coach Simmons is too dang good of a coach to, I think, see her team on the outside. I really do. And that's, I think Coeur d'Alene could be a team of destiny this year and be playing, Saturday later in the day at state tournament.
Yeah, so I've started a new feature here with the start of district tournaments. It's an updated bracketology. Every day I update. Okay, if state started today, what would the matchups be? Where would the teams be slotted? Coeur d'Alene would be the number one overall seed based on the Max Preps rankings, and so yes, I do like the Vikings' chances to advance here. Certainly. Let's move to 4A. District 1 and 2. This is where you've got the 3-team affair. We just had conference games last night, and so when you look at the league standings, the teams aren't filled in on the seed line yet, but Sandpoint at 3-5. Lakeland and Moscow are both 2-6, so they're all within a game of each other with one game to go, right? Or are they done?
I think Post Falls clinched. I thought they clinched last night.
Oh yeah, yes, you are correct. So the 5A
Sandpoint clinched last night.
Yes, so the 5A schools play 9 games. The 4A schools play 8 league games.
Yeah.
So you are correct. Sandpoint is the 1 seed. See, this is always fun because now I get to fill in the bracket here live on the show. So Sandpoint is in.
Yeah, they beat Moscow 50-22. They're 14-5 overall, and they finished the league part of the season 5-3 in the 4A, 5A IEL. So,
and then
this is from their Twitter page.
Yeah. Lakeland and Moscow both went 2-6. So when we look, the first thing you look at is, okay, who gets to host that play-in game? Well, Lakeland swept Moscow this year, beat them both times. So Lakeland's going to get to host that game. And this will be next Monday, February 6th at 6 p.m. So,
there
you go.
Yeah, and Sandpoint plays Kellogg for I don't want to say a meaningless game, but they play on Thursday, and that game's not going to mean a ton because Kellogg's a 2A team. It's just kind of like a fill-in from, I believe it might be a makeup game from earlier in the season, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah.
Yes, and Lakeland still has one final regular season game left as well. This one means a lot because it's their school district rival, right? Timberlake. So
yeah,
and a good Timberlake team. Honestly, a win here by Lakeland would boost their Max Preps ranking considerably if they were the team to get to state. Now, is it enough to boost them out of the 8 seed overall? I don't know, but I'll be honest. There are some teams at the bottom of that 4A bracket. You look at like Columbia, Twin Falls. There's a chance for Lakeland to move up in the overall seed line. If state started today and Sandpoint was the team that got there, Sandpoint would be the 3 seed overall.
Yeah, and they've had a quietly great season. I mean, and they played the 5A schools tough. I mean, they really did. And the score didn't indicate in a couple of the games it looked like a blowout, but it was, a really close game in the third quarter. Some of those teams just walk away with numbers late. But, you look at Sandpoint, I look at them and they're a contender. And I think it was, they went down to Boise at the beginning of the season and they had a decent showing down there and it showed some promise, and they've been able to deliver, with a tougher schedule in the back end of the year, playing those 5A teams after New Year. Here they are, 3 seed. That's awesome. Like, hats off to the Lady Bulldogs, and looking forward to see if they are the team that comes out of 4A from the north to get a high seed. That's a big deal, especially if you get a chance to face some of the teams like you mentioned, like the Columbias or Twin, or maybe another team sneaks in a league tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But Sandpoint's quietly having a great season.
Yeah, right now the projected matchup would be Sandpoint versus Minico. Minico would be the 6th seed. They're kind of the best team from over in District 4. But again, it all starts with that play-in game next Monday, Moscow at Lakeland. Okay, I feel like the field's getting smaller here. We're going from 4 to 3 down to 2 for the Intermountain League. This is the best of 3 game series. Timberlake swept the regular season series with Bonners Ferry. They get to host all 3 games next Monday, next Wednesday, and if necessary, next Thursday. But boy, I like Timberlake a lot here.
Yep, I like the Tigers. I don't want to say book it, but that they're a really solid team, and they've gotten some good games. I mean, they got some big wins. They beat Sandpoint. They split with them in the regular season. They took Coeur d'Alene to the wire. I mean, this Tigers team is primed, and they've got a a solid lineup to make a lot of noise come state tournament time.
Yeah, this is a really good team. They come in 17-2 on the season. Right now, if state started today, they would be the number 2 seed overall, only behind Snake River. They would be playing Kimberly, the number 7 seed. I really like this. Malia Miller has been playing really well for Timberlake down the stretch here. Sumas is a great lead guard. I like this Tigers team, and Coach Miller always has those girls playing so well at the end of the year. So yeah, I like Timberlake in that setup there. The 2A Central Idaho League, I haven't filled in this bracket yet because we were waiting on the conclusion of the regular season here, but I do know that Grangeville did wrap up the number 1 overall seed, and they are kind of, to me, the clear favorites in this bracket.
I would agree with that as well. And if there's a play-in game, the number 2 team coming out of the conference, if they get a chance to win that, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I would tend to think it would be Kellogg, but I don't know. It just kind of depends on how things shake out and who shows up through the district tournament. But I like Grangeville. I don't know their chances of state of winning a state championship, but I certainly think that they can bring home some hardware. 2A is a very deep, in my mind. I think it's got a little bit more depth to it as far as statewide goes. So there'd be a little bit more of a hill to climb. But yeah, I mean, the Bulldogs have had a great season. Grangeville getting the 1 seed certainly plays to their favor, especially if you're going to get any road game, or you're going to get a team coming on a long trip. Anybody coming out of the north other than Orfino has got a significant bus ride ahead of them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shake up with Kellogg and everybody else in the mix.
Yeah, I think we can comfortably put Kellogg in as the 2 seed as well. And then, between Orofino and St. Mary's, we'll have to figure out 3 and 4. I have to make some adjustments because you see over here, Priest River is the number 5 seed. This is kind of a weird deal. They basically said, we don't want to play Grangeville or Orofino in league play this year. We just want to play Kellogg and St. Mary's. And in exchange, we'll just automatically take the number 5 seed. So I don't think I'm not going to count any of the games where Kellogg played Priest River or St. Mary's played Priest River. I'm not going to count those in the official league standings because otherwise you have an unbalanced schedule. So I need to figure that portion of it out to figure out who gets the 4 and who gets the 3 between St. Mary's and Orofino. But I don't know, kind of an unusual deal there.
Yeah, I didn't know that was taking place, and that's kind of
I didn't either.
I've never heard of that one in a league, not being able to opt out of playing league opponents. But all right, yeah.
I mean, I've seen that where teams go like, hey, we want to play like a hybrid JV varsity schedule, and maybe our varsity plays some of the lower end varsity teams in the league, and then we play the good schools, we play their JV, and we'll automatically take the last seed. But I don't know. Priest River to me shouldn't be in that boat. They're a 3A coming down to a 2A league. So
yeah,
I don't know what's going on there. But anyways, to me, this is kind of Grangeville's deal. And an interesting thing about the Bulldogs, they only have 1 senior on the roster this year, Natalie Long. So this is a team that, again, just Coach Barger does such a great job of just consistently churning out quality players. And so this could be Grangeville's thing for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about, what's feeding your programs, and you kind of look around, and there's, a lot to be said about the club teams and the lower levels that are there that are, turning out great athletes. And maybe it's just the genetics too. I don't know. That could have a lot to do with it, but Grangeville's been good at basketball for a long time. And I mean, you could look back to like the Dreadful Waters and gosh, Grangeville's just got this pedigree, and they're just keeping things rolling.
Yeah. So let's move on now to the 1As, and this is where we actually have action starting soon. Let's go to the White Pine League first, because those are where games are actually taking place. We're recording this on Wednesday, February 1st, and there are games happening tonight. Lapwai, the 1 seed, Prairie, the 2 seed, Kamei finishes 3rd. Those are kind of the 3 teams. Line them up. And so you've got Lapwai, the 1, hosting Logos, the 8 seed. Potlatch will host Genesee in the 4-5. Kamei will host Clearwater Valley in the 3-6 matchup, and then it's Prairie hosting Troy in the 2-7. That Potlatch Genesee matchup sneakily could be a pretty good game. That could go either way, I think, but otherwise I like the top seeds.
Yeah, I'm picking chalk here, I think, is what's going to take place. I mean, like you said, though, that 4-5 game, it's always it's kind of a toss-up sometimes, but Potlatch playing at home on a Wednesday night, I'm going to take the Loggers there. It's going to come down to is that Kamei Prairie game is going to be really interesting if that takes place on Saturday. I think that's going to be something to watch and fun. But this tournament's always just an absolute, I don't want to say bloodbath, but like it gets to be pretty crazy and exciting fairly regularly. And you always see an upset or a surprise kind of start rolling through. So who knows? Maybe Clearwater Valley gets hot and upsets Kamei. You never know. Like that kind of stuff happens. So it'd be, I know I would like to pick chalk from the outsider's view, but I mean, ultimately it's going to be settled on the court.
Yeah. So Potlatch Genesee both finished with identical 7-7 records in White Pine play this year. And I think they split. Their regular season series. Potlatch won by 10 in the first matchup. Genesee then won by 5 in the rematch. So that should be a fascinating battle there, as we talked about. And I guess the question is can Kamei break through and steal, a bid from more than likely Prairie, right? We think Lapwai's Lapwai and Prairie played kind of close early in the season, but Lapwai won going away in the rematch. And so the question is, can Kamei break through and steal that second bid from Prairie? The two times they played this year, they lost 53-38 and 54-25 in the most recent matchup. So this to me looks like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to say this to me looks pretty clear cut, right? Lapwai, Prairie, and maybe they meet for the championship again as well at state. Who knows?
Yeah. And I think that might be, I'm leaning Prairie. I mean, just based on who they returned from last year, it's clear cut who the best two teams in the conference are, in my opinion. And that's not saying much. I mean, not trying to slight Kamei in the season they've had, but that's just the talent level of what's on the court. And you look at what's there. Lapwai is just really darn good. And Prairie's a really good team as well. And I think that, state tournament time, I don't want to look ahead too far, but it could be a repeat of what we saw last year. It really could.
Yeah, if state started today, Lapwai and Prairie would be your number 1 and number 2 overall seeds. So I think that tells you everything you need to know there. We've got as well, of course, the Scenic Idaho Conference, District 1. This was kind of a crazy deal. Wallace and Lakeside met a week ago, Ryan, and Lakeside won that game in just dominating fashion. They won by a final score of 67-33. And then they meet up 2 weeks later last night, and it's Wallace who wins in dominating fashion, 53-21. So two completely different blowouts on both sides. The two teams end up tied with identical 3-1 records. So after the game last night, they said, okay, we need to flip the coin, figure out who gets the 1 seed. Lakeside wins the toss, which means Wallace has to play Genesis Prep in that first game at North Idaho College next Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just not your night. I think we've seen that happen before with some teams. And I don't know, which one didn't have their night? Was it the first game? I think it's going to be more even in the third and decisive game. I think Wallace beats Genesis Prep. But Lakeside and Wallace, I think the third stanza, I think, is going to be a little bit more telling as far as what we actually see. It's going to be a closer game. It wouldn't surprise me to see this one come down to the last 50, 60 seconds of the game to finally be decided and see that go under 1 minute, neck and neck. I think, what you've seen blowouts from either side is that one team just has an off night. And I think you draw the line in the middle, and that's probably where both of them lie. And so, if you split the differences on both of those scores, it's a pretty even ball game.
Yeah. Great coaching battle. Chris Dorman, longtime coach for Lakeside. Wallace is led by Nicole Farkas. Wallace is the team that got to state last year, so I'm a little more familiar with Wallace as a team. I'll tell you, as an outside observer, I think Lakeside has the best overall player in the matchup, Ariana Javier Gore. But I think Wallace maybe has better depth, led by the Phillips sisters, 3 of them, Brittany, Bethany, and Kylie. Brittany, a junior, Bethany, a sophomore, Kylie, a freshman. And we've talked about that on previous episodes of the North Idaho Prepcast. So I don't know. I kind of lean Wallace there personally, but who knows? Anything could happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Javier Gore and the way she can score. I mean, she gets hot and they don't have a defensive answer for her. That can lead you to a victory. And, like you said, depth, I think, leans Wallace. But as far as talent on the floor, it leans Lakeside. If you're looking at the starting 5, it's a toss-up. It really, in my mind, it's 6s either way. Like, on who decides that one, it's going to be really hard to pick a winner.
For sure. All right. Well, speaking of coin flips, there is a coin flip still to be determined in the North Star League at the 1A D2 level. And so that's why this bracket isn't filled in yet. Clark Fork and Mullen have to get together for a coin flip, and they were going to do that according to the Coeur d'Alene Press. And they did a great job reporting on all this stuff from last night. They're going to do that today at some point because Mullen and Clark Fork each finished 3-1 in league play. They must have split. They played. When did Mullen play Clark Fork? Yeah, they lost 37-17 the first time. And then in January, they won 26-21. So they were doing their coin flip today. I just texted Stetson Spooner, the athletic director at Mullen, to see if they had that coin flip yet. Haven't heard back. If I hear something, we'll bust in with the breaking news here on the podcast.
You'll have to cue up the music. Yeah.
Yes. But you can slot Kootenai. Kootenai is in at number 3 here. I think it's just like the 1AD ones, right? It's going to come down to Clark Fork and Mullen. I like Clark Fork, I think, personally. Mullen is the team that has been to state most recently. They won this league 2 years ago. And then didn't have a varsity team last year. They didn't have enough players. They just did a JV only. So whereas Clark Fork had a team and then had to get to state via a play-in game and didn't make it. So this year with one full bid on the line, I like the Wampus Cats, I think, to take that slot.
Okay. I'll go the other side. I'll take Mullen.
Okay.
I'm feeling like a little Kenny Rogers gambler tonight. So, yeah.
Mullen only has 1 senior on the roster, which is great because that means that they were able to find enough underclassmen to be able to have a varsity team this year, which is good. Jasmine Nelson is a great point guard for Mullen. She's a junior. She was at state as a freshman and started. I covered that tournament 2 years ago, so I got to watch Jasmine Nelson as a freshman at state. So she's a really solid point guard that can really facilitate what Mullen wants to do. I don't know. Clark Fork always has a really good volleyball program, and a lot of those athletes are playing basketball. Emily Myers is outstanding for the Wampus Cats. You've got Hannah Thompson. Lily Reuter has been phenomenal. So I don't know. Coin flip. There's going to be a coin flip today to determine who gets the bye, and you could probably.
Yeah, I wonder if they're having it like the Blue Plate Cafe in Hayden or something like that, so they meet in the middle.
Right. I just, you remember the movie Friday Night Lights, the movie, not the TV show, and they were there broadcasting the coin flip at the diner. What, can we get in on some of that action at IdahoSports.com? Can we go down and broadcast the coin flip?
We got a 1976 quarter and a versus the 1985 nickel. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool. But anyway, so that's where we're at with that. And then we've got the White Pine League here, 1A D2. We can't fill anything in yet because we need to figure out still where everybody sits in the final conference standings. I can tell you that Highland is the 5 seed.
Yep.
And I can tell you that the 4 seed is St. John Bosco. So they're going to play Friday in the play-in game, and from there we'll advance to the 4-team affair. I can tell you that the 3 seed is going to be Nez Perce, and then Kendrick and Deary tied for first in the league standings. They each went 7-1. They actually played last night in their regular season finale. Kendrick won the first matchup by 19, 47-28. Deary gets revenge last night and wins 44-38. Uriah Wood made some big plays down the stretch for the Mustangs to get the win there. So again, I don't know how that tiebreaker is determined. If it's point differential, then Kendrick will get that because they won by 19. But either way, this league gets 2 teams to state. I think you can pretty much rubber stamp it. Kendrick, Deary.
Yep. I don't know how it's going to be like last year, if it's going to be chalk and then they flip it state and have to play each other first round.
Yeah, that did happen last year, didn't it?
So hopefully they get seeded better and get on opposite sides, because I think both these teams are really good. I think they could both, finish in the top 4. I mean, honestly, at 1A D2, I think they're both that good of a program. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I hope the rankings shake out, though, that they get seeded opposite. So you almost hope for, I don't know, like whoever's ahead in the rankings right now, you almost want them to win the district championship so you can spread yourselves out instead of tightening that seeding race and end up playing yourself back into the middle of the bracket.
So here's what I will tell you. If state started today, your 1A D2 seeds, Rockland would be the 1 seed. They're the defending champs. Kendrick would be the 2 seed. Deary would be the 3 seed. So you're talking about Kendrick and Deary possibly in a semifinal. If you wanted them to meet for the championship, you would need Rockland to lose to somebody. I don't know that that's going to happen necessarily, but either way, both teams should get
if another loss for Deary to Kendrick is enough to move them to the 4 seed, I don't know. But I mean, like, even a semifinal game, I think, is pretty intense for both teams. So yeah, that's a decent showing.
Definitely. So this is only their Max Plus rankings are only based on the regular season. So what happens at districts doesn't impact it at all. So we're pretty much locked in at this point. The only thing that could change is potentially if an opponent, Kendrick or Deary, played, still has regular season games remaining. That could tweak the numbers. But okay, that's girls basketball postseason. A lot of good teams out there, Ryan, that I think have a good shot at getting a state and representing, including several that are among the tops in your North Idaho 9. Let's take a look at your North Idaho 9, your all classification rankings of the best 9 teams in the state of Idaho for girls basketball. You kind of took the easy way out on the back half of the rankings this week, and I will let you describe that.
So top Coeur d'Alene, 2 Lake City, 3 Lapwai, 4 Post Falls, tied between between Sandpoint and Timberlake. And then at 7th, I've got 4 teams, Kendrick, Prairie, Deary, and Kamiah. I can't figure out how to separate them. Neither can the rankings. So they're all going to be tied, and we'll let district tournament time kind of settle the dust on that one. I would tend to lean to put Kamiah on the back end of that list. But head-to-head rankings come into play. So, I mean, if I was going to rank it, probably Kamiah would be the one left out, but I think they've had such a good season. We'll leave them in the rankings for this week, for another week, and just kind of have a all-encompassing, we'll take the participation trophy and give everybody 7th place.
How benevolent of you that was.
I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, boys basketball. Before we show your North Idaho 9, let's hit on a couple of stories from the past week in boys hoops.
It happened.
Yes.
I knew it was going to happen at some point, and you know what I'm talking about. Probably it finally happened.
Yes. Before we get to that, Nostradamus, I did want to mention just quickly. Here's our weekly stopover in Lapwai. Kase Wynott scored 52 points. In a win last week. I mean, I'm running out of things to like.
Well, here's the deal. Lapwai's been without Terrell Ellenwood Jones for the last week and a change, and they haven't missed a beat. They've been playing big, and they've still been blowing people out. And so Kase Wynott's been playing the point and been playing it pretty dang well, obviously. If he's throwing down 52 points, double-digit assists, he had a couple more triple-doubles to his arsenal for the year. I believe that puts him like at 11 or 12 on the season. I mean, good grief. Like, if he hasn't if he's not this top player in the state of Idaho next year, I don't know who is. But I mean, the dude just plays, and I don't care what level he's at, he's going to play big. And yeah, so I'm done on the soapbox there for Lapwai. But once they get Ellenwood Jones back, I look at that team being at full strength. They're, I don't want to say untouchable, but that's, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our weekly stopover in Lapwai. Now let's move on to what, and I try not to, we try to share the love and not talk about the same teams all the time, but man, Lapwai just forces us to every week talk about them. Okay. You predicted this for some time. The last several weeks you've been talking about, hey, Post Falls boys, they're a good team. Mike McLean's a great coach. You can see the effort they're giving. They're getting better each game. They're going to get somebody's going to get got. And Coeur d'Alene got last Friday night.
Coeur d'Alene got and at home. And so just hats off to that Trojan. I mean, they placed. I mean, we've had a bunch of their games this year. They're just play so dang hard. And I just look at their lineup and who they've got. McCarthy at point guard is such an exciting player to watch. He's so fun. And he just plays dang hard. He's all over the floor. He's one of the shorter guys on the floor, but just gives, every ounce of what he's got. And, you look at guys like Asher Bowie and Cooper Craig and the other contributors that are in that lineup, and you look at this team and the depth that they play with. I mean, they'll play 10 guys in a game, and they'll all get pretty significant minutes. This team's not going anywhere. They're going to be around for a couple of years, and I think they're going to make more noise as they mature. He's got a good group, and he's got another coach, like I've talked about, with Jason Ulrich being on the staff behind him. He's got other assistants in his program that, they're only going to build. They're going to get better. And then a big win. Hats off to them getting that win over Coeur d'Alene. That was huge. And the Vikings are reeling a little bit, losing to Post Falls and coming back and losing to Lewiston. There's backsliding a little bit towards postseason time.
Yeah, it's been a rough stumble here. I will say that Coeur d'Alene, still in good position to get that number 2 seed overall. And so they'll be fine. I mean, Lake City is still the team we're keeping an eye on there, but what a tremendous week for the Post Falls boys. I mean, they've just been yearning for that breakthrough win, and they got it. Yep. And that's gonna fuel them into obviously the postseason, but into next season as well, because not a single senior on that team.
Yep.
So
not one. Yeah, Shields is another great player in that lineup, and there's just dudes that Blake is another great player. Like, I mean, you look at that starting lineup that they've got. They're all young, and they're going to be around. And Cooper Craig is a junior. He'll be back next year. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what Post Falls can do the next few years.
Definitely. And so let's talk about. So I think Coeur d'Alene. I was double checking this, Ryan. I think Coeur d'Alene got swept Lewiston. I think they beat Lewiston.
Did they?
Times. Yes.
Okay. Maybe I saw a typo then online, because I could have swore that I thought I saw that Lewiston beat them, but
yeah. So they just beat Lewiston last night, 60-44, and
that's what it was. Okay.
And they won the previous matchup 57-48. So
I saw somebody reported the score reversed.
Yeah,
my bad.
You know what happens a lot. I'm myself and Paul Kingsbury are the guys who put in the scores on IdahoSports.com every night. And sometimes I get the dyslexia a little bit, and I'll assign the wrong total to the wrong team. And then the coach will email me and be like, hey, you got to fix this. And anyways, so
never mind. So that changes my North Idaho 9, by the way. So knowing that, because I went based off of what I saw on Twitter last night. Okay.
I can adjust that. I will edit that for you. I think I know what needs to happen.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the other thing we wanted to talk on in boys hoops, and then we'll show the North Idaho 9, is kind of an interesting non-conference game, kind of sneakily got added to the schedule here very late in the year, where tomorrow night, is it tonight or tomorrow night?
It's tonight.
Lake City is hosting St. Mary's.
Yeah.
A 5A versus a 2A. This is going to be an incredible experience for those St. Mary's kids. Do they have a chance at winning? Maybe a 1% chance, but it's,
I've talked to a few people close to that program. They kind of know the inevitability that lies in front of them, but they're excited. They're excited for the opportunity. So But it's the battle of the cousins, and I don't know necessarily who's the cousins there, but that's how they keep coining it on Facebook and social media. But it should be a fun game. I mean, Coach Chase does a great job with that team. I think they're just going to come out loose, and maybe they go like, what is it, Grinnell College or whatever, where they just huck up like 109 3-pointers in a game and see if any of them land. Maybe, I don't know, like you just take some wacky approach to the game and see what happens. I have no idea.
Yeah, I know St. Mary's likes to press. Against Lake City, that could be perilous, but
you're gonna press a 6'11" guy. I mean,
you gotta do what you gotta try and do, right? Yeah. What are the cousins? It's Blake Buchanan.
That's right.
And I think it's Tyler Renner from St. Mary's is what the cousin connection is there. And of course, we all remember our favorite athlete, Colby Renner, who has since graduated and moved on. But so there you go. That's kind of the cousin connection there. This was kind of a last minute deal that got arranged because Lake City had a game get canceled. Earlier this year, they were supposed to play Garfield from Seattle at the little showcase they did. And then they tried to pick up a standalone game with Garfield. That fell through. So basically, both teams had an open date. They filled it with each other. This is going to be awesome. Now, St. Mary's is still without Grayson Sands as well. It sounds like they're hoping to get him back for districts. That's kind of what I've heard. But
well, it won't hurt the Max Preps rankings playing the number 1 5A team in the state.
It can only help, right?
So it might actually raise their rating even in a loss. So
definitely.
That's a benefit, I think, for the Lumberjacks in this game. And I do have to give a shout out to Bonners Ferry, getting a big win over Lakeland. And they shoot us a lot of love on Twitter, does the Bonners Ferry Herald. And that team loves this. I mean, the whole school loves this Prepcast, and they respond in kind fairly regularly. And Asher Williams is having a monster season. So I just want to give some love to the Badgers. They're having a fantastic season. And they're a team that's going to be one to stick a pin on and watch come state tournament time.
Yes, I really like Bonners Ferry in boys basketball, and you really like them too because they have risen in your North Idaho 9 rankings this week.
Yep.
Here are the top 9. Go ahead.
So I've got 1 Lake City, 2 Lapwai. Actually, I had Bonners Ferry and Coeur d'Alene flopped, but that's okay. We'll leave it as is. But so I'll call off my phone. So 1 Lake City, we don't need to talk about them. Lapwai, we've already talked about them. Coeur d'Alene at 3. Even in a loss to Post Falls, I might have them tied with Bonners Ferry. Bonners Ferry, I like a ton. And that team is so balanced, and they just play so hard and gritty. Lewiston at 5, Kendrick 6, Lakeside 7, Kellogg at 8, Kamei at 9. Kellogg's a team to keep an eye on at 2A. Kamei, had their chance against a Lapwai team that wasn't at full strength, and they just couldn't overcome the hump. And Kase Wynott and company and Alarius, you're out. They're just too hard to get past. Lakeside, I still think, they haven't played all of their games yet, so we're still waiting to know who they are. But what we saw against Lapwai was certainly impressive, and what we saw against Bonners Ferry was impressive out of them as well. So I still like that Knights team a lot. Kendrick, had a tough. They got pushed to the wire against Deary, but that lineup is really good too at 1A D2. So that's my top 9.
Yep, looks good. My bad for getting Bonners Ferry and Coeur d'Alene.
All good.
In my rankings,
I would tie them. Yeah, we'll sleep.
I would have put
tie today.
I would have put Bonners Ferry ahead of Coeur d'Alene, Badger Nation, just so you guys know.
Yeah, you'll get an extra hamburger if you go to a game there. Yeah,
for sure. You know what? We got to give a shout out to our guy too, Christian Wiener. He was a great contributor to IdahoSports.com in the fall. Wrote our weekly, prep preview, weekend preview for us. Did a lot of behind the scenes stuff for IdahoSports.com, and he is an assistant coach on that Bonners Ferry boys basketball staff. So shout out to Christian Wiener up there in Bonners Ferry as well. He pinch hit for you a couple of times on the Prepcast too.
Yeah, him and I got to do a game together. We did a state playoff game. So for Bonners Ferry against Wood River. So
yeah, he's very talented. We want to use him more, but he's also a good coach. So
he's in high demand.
He is. We got to share him. So all right, last thing to get to is wrestling. We didn't talk a single second.
We saved the best for last. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we didn't talk a single second of wrestling last week. And the couple of things. First of all, I need to apologize to the Haas family in Lewiston. One, because I've said your name as Havas pretty consistently on this Prepcast, as well as our Idaho Matt Chat Prepcast. My bad. I didn't know that's how you pronounce that. V is silent. So good to know. My bad. And I will also apologize for not talking any wrestling last week. We had a member of the Haas clan leave us a comment on YouTube going, come on now, where's the wrestling talk?
Yeah, I know the family. So I went to high school with Hoyt's parents. So yeah,
that's funny.
It's all good. They're good people too, though. I know that they're fans of the Prepcast and of what we do, but their kid is having one heck of a season. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
At 126 pounds, he's the number one ranked wrestler in the state, and for good reason. I mean, he just continues to chug along, winning the North Idaho Rumble in an impressive fashion. Post Falls coming away with the team title was once again a big showing for the Trojans, and they're just able to flex their muscle a little bit more late in the season. You know, like wrestling in North Idaho, I think is in good hands, and it's shaping up to be fairly impressive, especially you get down to like 3A and 2A. I really do see some surprising wrestlers. There's going to be quite a few state champions that will come out of the lower rankings out of North Idaho, and I think shock some people. There's a lot of balance in Kellogg. You look at number 3 in the state rankings at 2A. Clearwater Valley still floating around out there as well. So it'll be an interesting thing. I don't know at the 4A. It's Lakeland. Sorry, is coming along. They're getting better as the season goes on with a new coach there, but his longtime name around the program. But Post Falls being the number 1 team in the state overall and at 5A, I really like the Trojans a whole lot. Lewiston, I think, can make some noise at state as far as getting into the top 5. They've got some kids that can definitely show up. And then girls wrestling, I mean, who do you want to talk about? Alyssa Randalls? Do you want to talk about, down in Moscow? You've got there's girls sprinkled all through the state of Idaho and through North Idaho especially. They're going to have huge postseasons.
Yeah, it's especially on the girls' side. I think North Idaho is going to be very well represented in the team race. Not necessarily, just because it's still growing and not every school can field the full lineup yet, but we're getting there. And so there's going to be a lot of good individuals on the girls' side at state, certainly. So
we'll get quite a few state champions out of North Idaho for sure.
Yes, for sure. So, all right, there's your wrestling talk. And if that wasn't enough to quench your thirst, friendly reminder, we do have the Idaho Matt Chat Prepcast. We do that every week live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Wednesday night. We're recording it tonight at 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific. I don't know why I said the Mountain time. That doesn't apply to anybody who's watching this. 7 p.m. Pacific
maybe there's somebody in Riggins that's watching. You never know.
I guess. Yeah, maybe. But anyways, 7 p.m. Pacific time tonight. And if you're...
Oh, hey, no. Gooding's watching. So, yeah. I mean, like, they watch our prep.
All right. That's true. For all those Gooding... For all the Gooding fans out there, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific time tonight. You can, of course, catch that on the replay or subscribe to the Idaho Matt Chat Prepcast wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, we've gone long again, Ryan, which we always seem to do. But as long as we're talking about high school athletes and not, our take on Hollywood movies, I think it's time well spent.
It's true. Yeah, no, it's the content nobody asks for, but they get anyways. So, yeah, no, it's always fun to jump on and do this with you every week and talk about the kids up here, and they deserve all the notoriety they can get. So happy to do it.
Okay, well, thanks for tuning in to the North Idaho Prepcast, everybody. For Ryan Scaggs, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.